now we're moving on to the ragu. The pasta is resting, and the first thing we're going to do is cut up our vegetables and the pancetta that needs to go in. So we'll start with the vegetables. I find it easier to break things like this into usable pieces. And when you're cutting things, just be really careful. I'm kind of weird, but when I am cutting them, I do one thing at a time. So I'm going to take all the pieces and cut them into the same length, move them over here. And you can also do the celery like this, which is probably easier, whatever works for you. And then I just line everything up. Make sure your fingers are folded under, and I just chop gently to get those all kind of the same size. You want them, these are going to saute in the pan and make, I think this is called a sofretto, which is not the right Italian accent, but it's just, what you're doing with this ragu is you're building flavor, and this is part of the flavor profile. So there's the celery, and then you do the same thing with the carrot. Get these pieces. What I'm doing here is I'm actually holding this together with my little finger and my thumb, and then putting my hands bent under to hold it all together so that I can, I'm basically lazy and I don't like to do 16 steps over and over again. And if you don't like the size, then that's when I just kind of chop away to make them the same size. So now this is your onion. This is a good lesson for every time you're using an onion. I find it easier. I've done this a zillion different ways, but I find it easier when you're working with an onion that you're going to chop up to cut off this end, leave this end alone. That's going to hold your onion together. I then cut that in half, and then I peel each half separately, because it seems to be easier than peeling off. And of course I like to see if I can get it off in one piece because it's fun. And then do the same thing. So if you have a task, I usually generally do the task for every piece and then go back and do the next task for that onion. So the next piece of this is to chop this onion, and I want them that size. And so when I look at my onion, I make sure your fingers are on the top, and I take the knife and I go down through, and I don't go all the way to the end. I just make sure that I've left a little bit so that it's still all holding together. Okay, and so now I've got these layers, and then I'm going to do the same thing the other way. And on this one, I just keep my fingers carefully placed like this and chop down through, trying to make them all the same size. And then I take it once again, and I'm holding it with my pinky and my thumb and folding my fingers over so I don't chop them off. And then just do the best you can to hold it together. Then I get to the end and I kind of hold on to this little piece here to kind of keep it together. And then I cut off that little piece. Do the same thing again. And then I'll just leave that one. Okay, so now I've got basically the same size. I don't like big pieces for everything. So that's chopped up nicely. And then this is actually an Italian salami. Didn't have any pancetta. Bacon would work here. Prosciutto. Whatever you want. Once again, we're building flavor, and as long as like it smells like it would add a nice taste to the meal, so I just say, that works. And then I just chop this into little pieces as well. I think it's prosciutto, but I'm not sure. I'm not Italian, but okay. Okay, so now we're going to go over to our stove, and everything else I have poured out the wine and the cream, and I'll let you know as we go along the amounts that I'm using. But basically, ragu is a meat sauce, and so you want the meat to shine in this, and there are other things that you make with the same combination. It's the basis for a lot of Italian food. And sometimes you use more of this than not. But this time, because we're trying to let the meat shine, we're going to just use one of each. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to heat this pan up, and we're going to saute all of this together. Okay, so now we're going to take the pancetta and put it in the pan. The oil has been heating up here for a minute. Yeah, that sounds a little hot to me, so I turned the heat down a little bit to keep adjusting the heat as you go along. And we just want this to brown up and crisp up a little bit. And once again, this is just, don't be afraid to pull your pan away from the stove if you feel like things are too, from the heat, if you feel like things are a little too hot. And then just wait until it gets down. Turn your burner down to low, and then work from there to get that up. But this, we just want this to turn crispy. A little bit. This again is a matter of taste. I like to get it a little bit, not caramelized, it doesn't caramelize, but kind of brown, and get some of that flavor, that temperature in there. And then I just watch it for a little bit. Any pan will do. If it's a non-stick, it might be a good place to start. Sometimes that fond builds up in there, and it's easier to take care of it when you've got a non-stick pan, but you can use any pan for this as long as it holds all of your ingredients. So this needs to cook probably another minute, and then it's turning, I don't know if you can see this, but it's turning a little bit crispy on the sides, and I like to make sure that it's all, I see a little bit of that, because that does add a nice rich flavor to the sauce. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to keep that going for just a minute, is add the vegetables, and I can pick this up and just drag it over there, but once again, I'm just going to take this and put it in, using my knife as a scraper. Be very careful doing this. And then this is going to take about 10 minutes. We are going to stir this, get all that oil, and then we're going to saute this until they're not overly tender, but you're going to break this down so that this is another added flavor. You don't want this to be the star of the dish. You just want this to be cooked enough before you put the meat in so that it kind of meshes in with everything and you don't notice this. but it's definitely something that needs to be in there. Like I said, I'm sticking to the recipe today. Once you figure out how you like this to taste, you can add anything you want to here, some spices, fennel, or garlic. But I'm taking this to the most simple place that you can take it, and then the next time you make it, you can add flavors as you so desire. And this is very tasty because this any ragu that you cook, we're making a ground beef ragu with pork today, but you want to keep building the flavors, and it all has to cook for no less than 2.5 hours. This one would probably go about 2.5 hours to 3 hours, and when you're using the larger chunks of meat, you can go anywhere from 3 to 4, 5, 6 hours. So, okay, so we'll come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, so here we are. We've broken. This is good for me. It's broken down enough so that the next step is I'm going to add the meat. This is about 1 pound of hamburger and about a little over 1 pound. I had a little bit more pork than hamburger, but like this is going in with the hamburger. And now you just want to cook this. And then you just stir this like you would any scrambled hamburger, and just mix it all in. And make sure that gets cooked through so that it gets to a point where you definitely can't form a hamburger anymore. Okay, so this is cooked down so that it's definitely, you can't shape a burger anymore. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your wine, and this is about 1/2 cup of wine, and you're going to put that in there, and you're going to let that simmer off so that the alcohol is gone, but the taste gets in there. Just want to let that go for probably 3 minutes. Just make sure that it's all stirred in. And then I'm going to add some tomato puree to this. You can take whole tomatoes and grind them up if you want to for a little more chunky. You grind them up as much as you want. This has an excellent flavor, and so I, generally speaking, use this when I'm trying to make something as authentic tasting as possible. It's awesome. And so I'm going to use about half of this. This is 700, a little bit more than half. It's probably 400 grams. Stir that in. Remember, the star of this dish is the meat. So we put that in. We'll let that, get that all stirred up. And then I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. And the next thing that goes in is a couple of bay leaves. I'll stir those in a minute. And then I'm going to flavor this one with the nutmeg. And you can do nutmeg. You can put, this is to taste. There's no measurement for this. You put a little bit of nutmeg in. When you're cooking like this, start small. You can always add more. You can use, I'm going to use actually fresh nutmeg, but you can use regular nutmeg, and you just sprinkle in until you like the taste of the nutmeg. If you don't like nutmeg, you can add fennel, or there are other things, but this particular recipe calls for nutmeg, so we're going to do that. And I'm just going to grate some of this nutmeg in. I've made this before, so I know kind of, but if I were just starting out, that's about what I would add. And I would stir everything in. You can add that nutmeg anytime, so I'm just going to leave it right there for a moment. The one deviation I am going to make from the recipe today, just because I make this frequently, is that I'm just going to add the rind of Parmesan Regaggio to just put it in. You're going to take that and the bay leaves out at the end. But like I said, we're adding a little bit of depth of flavor here. And so I just like it in there. It does add a nice, it just adds a nice richness to it. So that will all get mushy and you won't even recognize it when it comes out. And so this recipe, there was a huge debate with ragu and bolognese, but ragu is to whether or not milk or cream is supposed to be part of the recipe. And I've made it both ways. If you don't put milk or cream in, it's got a very acidic, yummy taste. If you put the milk in, it sweetens it up a little bit. And so today I have decided to go with the milk. You just add a little bit at a time. You're going to use this as this cooks to kind of keep this juicy enough as you're cooking for the next 2.5 hours. You want to pour this in extremely slowly so that it doesn't break. But I've got 2/3 of a cup here and I'm going to use about 1/3 of it right now. It changes the color of the whole dish. But as you go along, you'll see that continually change colors. And then the last thing we're going to add, we're going to keep this and add as we need it. The last thing we're going to add is some salt. And once again, I just start off with a couple of pinches of salt. And this is to taste. So once I know this meat is completely cooked through, I'm going to taste this for both salt. I'm going to add a little bit of pepper. And then I'm going to test this for the nutmeg and the salt and pepper. Yum! It smells so good. Okay, now I need to just taste that little bit of that. I'm just going to taste the sauce. I'm not going to... Oh my gosh, that's so good. It does need more salt and more nutmeg, so I'm going to add... Oh my word, that is so yummy. A little more pepper. Get another spoon and give it another taste. And you can adjust this anytime as you go along. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone for a little while, and that is going to take, I'm going to leave that going until I'm happy with it, but it will probably be about 2.5 to 3 hours, so we will be back. Okay, so we're back, and this is the ragu. It's done. It tastes great. I added the rest of the milk as we went through, and kept it going for 2.5 hours, and it came out great. It tastes wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.